You all seem like intelligent people who appreciate value, so let me ask you something. Would you logically, excluding extenuating circumstances, would you logically abandon more than 10 years of effort towards learning and practicing a particular thing? You wouldn't, would you? A decade or better, that's quite the investment. Hello, my name is David Anderson. I am a digital media and communications student, and I am in my on the threshold of my senior year towards the end of my studies. And kind of important to this discussion, I'm also an armchair philosopher. For a half a century, I've observed social conversation, especially once the digital era kicked in. And digital communication has, I say, regressively evolved because of certain factors. Through this speech, I aim to convince all of you, if you want to ensure your genuine voice and the true meaning of what you're trying to convey, emojis demand restraint. They can be subjective and easily interpreted, excuse me. Their pervasive use also squanders our literacy investment. So, right now, you might be thinking, what in all that is culturally relevant is this person suggesting? Well, I'm by no means considered a communications scholar, but I've made observations over a half a decade or a half a century, excuse me. I'm a little older than five. Um, that suggest that the digital conversation is regressively evolving, and it's evolving because we have the aid of technology, so we can easily edit things, add imagery, regressing because we're reverting to a prehistoric form of communication, which were pictograms. I want you to keep in mind the idea of pictogram through this entire conversation because it's important. Emily Favila, I hope I said her name correctly, she's a staff reporter for The Guardian, writes the internet plays a pivotal role in driving the evolution of social written conversation. The reason I bring this to our attention is that literacy is more common than not. A report issued by Statista.com in 2022 reported that the average global literacy rate for people 15 age and older is greater than 87%, meaning that we can read and write. We're just choosing not to. We're using pictograms to represent our voice, which can be convenient. Don't get me wrong, but there's an overwhelming proof that perhaps that proliferation is impacting our conversation. Shelby Cafferetti Burton shares the insight of Baylor University's communication and rhetoric professor Scott J. Verde, PhD, that approximately 92% of all communication uses emojis daily, whether that's in texting, emails, social posts. However, like I mentioned, emojis can be subjective. People will interpret them differently. Different cultures will interpret them differently. They can have different meaning. In a May 2024 New York Post article about the misunderstanding of emojis, author Brooke Steinberg notes that the thumbs up, the OK sign, and the P sign are prime examples of emojis that can be misinterpreted. And we'll come back to those in just a minute. Because emojis can be subjective, I am proposing that our digital conversation is losing its luster from their pervasive use, which again is also squandering that investment that we made into our literacy. Let me present this for your consideration. The definition of an emoji. First, the Oxford Dictionary defines an emoji as a small digital image, whether it is a pictogram, logogram, ideogram, or a smiley, and they're used to express an idea, an emotion, or an intangible. A pictogram is a pictorial symbol of something to represent a word or a character. like a heart shape. A logogram is a character representing a word or phrase, typically used in shorthand. An ideogram is a written character symbolizing the idea of a thing or indicate what is being said, say, like the numeral one as opposed to the word one. And then a smiley, and we all know what smileys are. Okay, so envision on your screen, and it could be phone, computer, whatever, the thumbs up emoticon. In Western culture, that actual physical gesture represents, affirmation, positive, cool kind of thing. But beware. What if it represented something else, like you're a self-administering Tom Thumb proctologist? Wiktionary defines the crasser version of that gesture as to mean idle doing nothing important in a situation that requires it. Surely you intelligent people are not that complacent. Next, envision on your screen an OK sign. In Western cultures, that can mean an affirmative, in agreement, excellent. However, beware, in other cultures, it can be considered vulgar. Perhaps it's the gesture of the sphincter on the south end of a camel heading north. Easily to misinterpret, see? Let's explore another one. Envision on your screen the peace sign. In Western culture, that means harmony to you, or to use the 60s jargon, groovy. But be careful. In other cultures, that could be equivalent to the middle finger in Western cultures. Basically, it's saying, go throw your legs in the air and sexually violate yourself. See, I'm really starting to think you guys are threatening me. Man. One final example, okay? Envision on your screen a smiley face, a yellow heart, thumbs up, a brain, a smiley face with a monocle, a megaphone, and a peace sign. What does it mean? I couldn't even tell you. I have no clue. But what I mean by that is I'm glad that you folks are joining me for this oration. So what can we do about it? I say we use it or lose it. We put in 10 plus years of investment into developing our vocabulary. Don't squander it. Besides, words can paint a more descriptive mental image than a emoji pictogram. Besides, if you think about it logically, to insert an emoji, you have to rifle through the library to find it. It'd probably take you less time to actually type the word. For example, I once tried to insert an open book. It took me more than a minute to find it, insert it, where I probably could have wrote the word study in 2 seconds or less. Think of them as kind of a punctuation, just a little supplementation to your digital conversations. To wrap this up, we're fortunate that we have the advantages of technology when it comes to our social correspondence. And what was not available to us half a century ago, we can now do. But it's just a tool. It's only an extension of how we want to express ourselves. By diminishing our voice to emojis, we're squandering that investment of 10 years. I implore you to restrain your thumb upping when you're digitally conversing. If you want to share your genuine voice, your true meaning, use your words, use your vocabulary. After all, that's a substantial investment that we have made. Stop giving your literacy the peace sign. You know what I mean.